Good morning. It is Thursday. I didn't write it down today. Yesterday I wrote it down. Today is Thursday, and this is your lockdown live number 33. It should be about 8:15 as I'm recording this. Have a look at the clock in the middle. Yes, it is. I'm using a new mic, so could you just let me know? Not a new mic, another mic. Just let me know that you can hear me. Okay. Okay. We're going to look at more unhelpful thinking styles. Today we're going to look at shoulds and musts. Shoulda, coulda, woulda was how we learned it in therapy school, so to speak. Welcome to home radio listeners. If you're not listening to home radio and you want to, you can access them via apps on both iOS and Android. You can go to homeradio.co.uk, or you can enable your Alexa. Just shout, "Hello, Alexa. Can you enable home radio, please?" Maybe don't say please, because that's just going to confuse her. Shoulds and musts. Let's have a look at these. So I talk about shoulds quite a lot in therapy. Whenever I hear somebody say I should have, then I pick it up straight away and we look at it a little bit deeper. Shoulds, musts, and coulds set unrealistic expectations, which can lead to some shame or guilt. Because if we feel that we should have done something or we could have done something, then where does that expectation come from? So let's start with shoulds. Whenever I look at a should, whenever I hear a should in therapy, I always go, "Oh, that was an interesting word. Tell me where that statement came from." So, for example, I should have walked more steps yesterday. Says who? Says who you should have walked more steps yesterday. Where does that come from? I always think with shoulds, they come from two main directions. For me, it's always two main directions. We have learned them from when we were little, from our primary carers. So you should work harder, you need to work harder, you have to work harder, and all of those maybe unrealistic expectations that were fine for your primary carers, but not so much for us. And the other place that shoulds come from is society. I call it a societal expectation. A societal expectation is the expectation that as a man of a certain age, I should be looking a certain way or driving a certain car, or if my societal expectations are set by Instagram, for example, then even at my age, I would be sporting a really ripped six-pack. So we can be surrounded by expectations in the world. One of the most classic expectations in the world that I always mention, because people then get it, is there is an expectation that people will be attracted to the opposite sex, because it's still the majority. It's still the majority that. So therefore there's an expectation, but it's a unfair expectation, because that's not always the case, as we well know. So consider societal expectations, consider the pressure that we get unconsciously from the world around us, and consider as well how if we don't meet those expectations, because as a man of a certain age I don't look a certain way or sound a certain way or drive a certain car, then that can lead, it wouldn't, but it could lead me to shame and guilt over not meeting those expectations. So shoulds and woulds. Woulds are very much the same. No, coulds are very much the same in terms of, oh, well, I could have, and I could have done this, and I could have done that, and I could have done better, and I could have. Whenever we do that, we're looking back on a past event and possibly shaming ourselves again into not being good enough. And if you have a not good enough script in your head, those little words that are always kind of detrimental in our heads, then you are just exasperating that and also validating it. So shoulds and musts are very, very interesting. And here's my challenge for you. My challenge for you is, if you hear yourself say, "I should have, I could have," particularly should, that's the one that I really like, I want you to question it and ask yourself, where did it come from? Did it come from something you learned when you were younger, or influential people around you? Or does it come from a societal expectation? In either of those cases, I also want you to ask yourself, does it belong with you? So is that expectation yours, or is it something that was placed on you by somebody else? So there's your little challenge for the day. Hear yourself say shoulds and musts, And if you forget what I've said during this recording, then come back and watch it again, because it is really interesting, and it begins to shift our thinking and the way that we view ourselves in terms of all of those unhelpful expectations. The Action for Happiness calendar says, appreciate the good qualities of someone in your life. So that's about really focusing on the good qualities. This might be really helpful if you're struggling in lockdown and you're struggling with being around people that aren't normally there. Yeah, we live in houses, and because people are on furlough or people are working from home, all of a sudden we find ourselves in very, very unusual situations. So it's hard to, it's easy to look in on somebody and go, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and this is happening, that's happening. But today I want you to focus on what they do bring into your world, because I think you'd be really surprised at what they do bring into your world. Okay, so that's the Action for Happiness calendar. Don't forget, if I'm not covering subjects that you want covering, then please let me know, and I will look at that. Just before we finish, somebody did message me and talked about retirement, which I thought was a really interesting subject. And my response was, I think retirement can be overlooked, and it has an expectation on it that it's just going to be wonderful and it's just going to happen. And actually, it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't always happen like that. For a lot of us, our work world is our purpose. And we spend so much time working, and it's our drive and it's our passion. And then all of a sudden we retire, and then we are removed from that world. That, for a lot of people, can be absolutely catastrophic, because all of a sudden their world is empty. If you're due to retire, if you want to retire, then make sure that you have started to build up social networks and hobbies and finding your purpose. Purpose is the most important thing. So think about things that really lift you, that really give you that drive. Think about that part there. But please don't just go into retirement without any kind of plan. Like I say, there is an expectation that it's just going to be wonderful and amazing, and I've got all this time off and yada, yada, yada. But then sometimes 6 months, a year down the line, people will get very stuck. It'll be even harder for people that have retired during a pandemic, because our options are somewhat reduced. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't still have some sort of purpose. Do some voluntary work. I talked last night about doing voluntary work and how 2 hours a week is so good for our soul, not just for everybody else's, but for ours as well. So yeah, if you're retiring, if you're planning on retiring, please don't do it without some sort of action plan. Increase your social circles and try and find your purpose. Try and find things that you really want to do. Maybe look at your bucket list and work out what you haven't yet done, and what have you got time for, and what do you have the finance for. Look at it that way. But just give it some thought. Don't just slide into it and go, yay, I'm retiring at long last, it's amazing, because that's not necessarily going to work. So quickly back to shoulds. A little challenge for you today is to hear yourself say shoulds. Every time I say should, I question it and I say, where does that come from? Did I learn it from somewhere around me? Primary carers, teachers, all of those other influential people in our lives. Or did I unconsciously take it on board from the world around me? Because there's a lot of expectations unconsciously placed upon us, that as a man of a certain age, I should be driving a certain car and earning a certain amount of money and have certain status. That is an expectation which is unfair. And if I take it on, then it can lead me to feel disappointed, and maybe even lead to shame and guilt. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow, Friday morning at 8:15 with another Lockdown Live. We're going to continue to look at unhelpful thinking styles. I haven't yet chosen tomorrow's, but I'll come up with something. Or you can message in and let me know what you want to hear. Don't forget, you can share these, and they are all available on my YouTube channel, because they all go across there eventually as well. But they're on 2 Facebook feeds, so you can get them via there as well. Okay, I'm going to go. I wish you an absolutely wonderful and an amazing day. I think it's going to be a little bit wet, but that's fine. Put your hood up, get a big umbrella, get outside. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.